Welcome to the Mrs. Paintbrush. Today we're going to hone our skills by creating rocky crags for my winter terrain. Welcome back, TMP fans. Boy, we have a show for you today. Today we're going to hone up our skills and we're going to improve that skill to make rocky crags from a winter terrain. If you want to see my first crack at doing that winter terrain, you're going to see the entire project is right up on top of my head. Up there. And you can see that entire journey. You may want to see that video first before you watch this video, but either way, we're going to learn a skill today, and today is going to make those rocky crags. Now, the material we're using is pink insulation styrofoam. Now, you can definitely get those at the big box stores like Home Depot or Lowe's, and it's pink insulated blocks. They're huge, but not so huge that they're not manageable. I've seen blocks of insulation foams the size of a wall, So, but this is like I think it's a 5x5 or a 4x4. It's great. And what I did is that I made that entire winter scenery, and I used certain materials in order to do that. Namely, I used a lot of this Woodland Scenics Soft Flake Snow SN140. And it is great. Like, as much as I've used out of this, I've used it for my entire army and for entire sheets of terrain. And look how much I have left.
Wow.
Yeah, no, seriously. It's
goes a long way.
Does go a very long way. So worthy investment, especially when you want loose, soft snow. But that's not the only snow that I use. I like to use a different variety of snow. Sometimes I have ice sparkles, speckles from AK Interactive's Scenics. They are pretty awesome. And one of the things that I like to use is not only does the ice crystal work for melting snow, but I definitely take a look at this. All right, so it's Terrain's Snow for dioramas. And I love professional dioramas. This is something that a train builder, they build huge train sets that are super realistic. They actually put me on to this, and boy, does that work. You can also use, here's an alternative if you want to go super cheap and create that. You can actually use spackle, wall spackle. The only thing about spackle is that it crumbles, so you got to be careful with that. Okay, that's the only thing. You have to be very, very careful. But I do like the terrains because this hardens up and it looks fabulous, absolutely fabulous. With the Woodland Scenics, though, I used Elmer's All Glue, not school glue. There's a difference. School glue is actually a little weaker bond than old glue, so that's you want to work on that. Yeah. So you've seen the edges before. They were wavy. I cut them out with my Proxon cutter. Shout out to Proxon. They make a great table foam cutter, which is amazing. But this time I had to approach it a little differently because I actually had winter terrain and that goop on top of it already. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. This is a completed one piece of terrain that's completed that actually has the rocky crags already in it, but they also have a very hard wintry terrain on top. See? So I had to cut through that, and I made this really cool. Look at the rocky crags that I made there. It really looks like rock. Before it was just wavy and completely flat, and it was just wholly unrealistic. But now this actually looks realistic. You could actually make almost a diorama out of it. And if I was to do a diorama, FYI, I would put little critters underneath over here, and maybe something channeling through, or something looking for food or something like that. So you can actually see like a cutaway in between, and these little animals or critters are trying to survive in it. Like, whenever you're doing a diorama, especially for a competition, you always want to tell a story. You want to make it interesting. Keep in mind that the people actually going and judging all of these things, they have hundreds, maybe even thousands of miniatures to look through. They're looking for something that sparks their interest, so something a little different other than a really well-painted model. They want a story. They want to sink into it. If they look at your miniature for like 1 second, then it didn't really tell a story. But if it was captivating and they want to look more and more, and they spend like 4 or 5 minutes on your miniature alone when they have thousands to look at, then you're onto something. So that's one piece of terrain that I have over here. You see, it's really lovely. I really like that. I really like it. It's going to look really awesome. And I built this terrain for my Space Wolves because if you ever seen, here, I'll show you. If you ever seen any of the terrain that I built for the Space Wolves, there's a lot of detail in there, skulls and all that goodness. And I can always go back and add skulls to that terrain, but it's not really calling me right now to be able to do that. Let me show you another piece of terrain that I built over here. This is a lot larger. You can see that. I wonder if I could fit it in there. Okay. So it's pretty big. And it's 2-tiered. Now this one was a little different because what I noticed the first time that I built this is that I put a lot of glue on it the first time, and it actually bowed. It bowed a little bit. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to circumvent the dips and the spaces that I had over here, like gaps, and I wanted to fill those gaps. Again, Elmer's All Glue to the rescue. I pumped in most of the bottle on there. I put it in there, and then I went in and patted soft snow onto it. Just patting it down with my finger, making sure there were no areas left wet. And this way it filled up the gaps. It adhered the top piece to the bottom piece, made it solid. Here, feel this. See how heavy it is? It's like not, there's some heft to it. It doesn't feel like
styrofoam.
Yeah, there's a heft to it right there. But
feels almost like a light wood.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the last piece over here, and I'm going to tell you, this is the diorama piece. I actually put some Space Wolves on here so you can get a vibe to it. This is a much smaller piece. So you can see it looks pretty wonderful and very detailed, especially for my gaming table. So whenever I have a Space Wolves battle, putting this stuff down makes it primo. With the game mat and everything else. Plus it has line of sight blocking because it's elevated. If you can see right here, you can't really see the top of it. So it's line of sight blocking too, especially with a double elevation. So if you're creating yours, keep that in mind, that all that line of sight blocking that you would need, especially for Space Wolves, because they're more, hand-to-hand combat, so they need to get close. You have it with these, okay? As long as you're not like, terrain for advantage kind of thing. Like you have a balance between the terrain that you have. All right, so enough of me gibber-gabbering and jibber-jabbering. Let's go down to the table town and see how we actually got on with doing this. Are you ready to go?
Oh, yeah.
All right, here we go. All right, so we're going to start off with this. You can see the wavy lines right there. It's very dull, very flat, nothing of interest going on here. It looked lame for the quality that I usually put out in videos. So let's go through the tools that I use. First, here's a Zarkon cutter. Now, I don't recommend you use Zarkon cutters or any of your plastic terrain cutters because the styrofoam will dull it. So stay away from using your nice clippers for this. So put it onto the side. Another option for you to use is going to be you may want to think about some hot wire cutters. Now, that would work, and that's how I got the wavy lines to begin with. But it really doesn't give the jaggedness. You can just do it in some kind of waves or something like that. But that flimsy little wire didn't cut through the pre-made snow that I already done. So it didn't really work well for my project and this application. So I stood away from that one too. So next up we have, we tried to use the wire clippers as well. Wire clippers are very, very strong, and you can get them inexpensive from a lot of different shops. You may want to think about, going to even like Walmart or a local hardware store. It doesn't have to be fancy, but that worked really well. I mean, that was like the bee's knees, the ace in the hole, if you will. Very awesome product. I really enjoyed using it and twisting it, and I'll show you how I twisted it later. Actually, let's get into it right now. I'm going to clip this end off and I'll show you exactly the effect. You know, you get this dull edge over here. Now keep in mind that the wire clippers are not as big as the big foam piece, but what you're going to do is you're going to want to rip it off. You know, like be aggressive, be aggressive, be aggressive. But you can already see you're getting a rocky crag kind of texture, and it's really just that easy. You may want, well, my thing, I wanted to make sure that the edges are not very sharp. All right. Definitely cool and very easy way. Some of the people may want to use a snap blade if you want to, and that's pretty good for scoring. I found it very difficult to work with. But it will tear apart or score, and then you could rip off parts. Now, the hardest part, again, is going through the pre-made glue and snow that I already had laid down. But let's see how it cuts. So we're going to go right through, and you see that it does a little striation there. It wasn't as craggy as I wanted it to be, so I'm going to dig in a little more and see what I can create with this. I feel that using it is pretty good if you want flat lines. So it's so-so, middle of the road. It's kind of difficult to work with. I try to use it as much as possible because I like to use all the tools in my toolbox, including a hacksaw. Now, this came in clutch. Let me tell you, not because it's a finished product, but if I wanted to absolutely hack off a piece, you know, what the product, you know, it says what it does on a label. It works wonders, especially if I had a large piece that I want to just cut off and hack into. It is good. Now, it does leave definitely a different kind of striation in there. Not for my application, but you can use that kind of striation if you want a different kind of rock, possibly, you know, like a iceberg kind of like melted and scrape the rock down, and you have that kind of striations within there. So on medium toughness or hard toughness, what do you think is easiest to work with, to hard work with, Sarah?
Okay, I mean, it seems like the medium toughness would be easier because you wouldn't have to work so hard to cut through it.
Okay.
But since you're asking, I'm guessing it's a trick question, and actually the tougher one is easier.
Yeah, you would think the hacksaw, but the hacksaw saves off so much time because it's so rough. And you see it gets stuck and all those things, but honestly, it saves so much time. Look at that. I can get to cut off large pieces that do not look natural and make them however I want them, even if I had all this glue on it. And snapping off is great too. Like if you cut it most of the way and snap off, that's great too.
That's what I was about to ask. Can you just rip it with your hands?
You can.
That would definitely create an uneven kind of jagged look.
Yeah. And and that's super random. So you can create that. Here I am thinking about doing a bi-level kind of terrain feature there. Now I'm going to try again the snap blade and see how it does. And you know, I realized here when I went that and almost cut my finger just there, that this it's kind of dangerous. All right, coming in clutch, we're going to go in and we are going to attack this thing with, well, I tried the clippers. No, back to the hacksaw. Does great for clipping off larger pieces. So this is my finisher over here. This is the one tool that really does most of it all. Not for large pieces, but it actually creates the rocky crag that I've been looking for. Little holes, little textures, little pieces that you can put snow in. It tells a story. And you can be very intentional with where you want and what shape you want. Or you can be a little bit random by taking it and twisting it. You see that twist at the end? Like I'm clipping and twisting. And that really adds definite texture to it and actually makes it add a lot of interest to it because it's not just one straight rock down. It's like multiple.
It looks like when you're on the highway and you pass by, you know, the hills where the rocks have been, you know, cleared out to make way for the highway, and you can just see the different layers of rock.
Oh yeah.
That's what it reminds me of. Like what we saw when we went like 2 weeks ago on our trip.
Oh yeah, over to Cumberland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they put dynamite on there and it exploded the rocks. But yeah, definitely with
this
that
is the look
and
it creates.
yeah, that and erosion
Mm-hmm.
created that. Now you're gonna want to rub your fingers around the sides of that to get any loose kind of styrofoam out. And I'm really hacking into this piece here.
Well, would loose styrofoam kind of gunk up in your, like, would that cause problems in your artificial snow?
It would not really the artificial snow, but when you're painting it, you might have to repaint it because a piece will fall off and then it'll wind up on your brush and then you have to clean your brush and then you have to go at it. It's just more of a stress-free if you just handle the object, because you are going to be handling the object. It is terrain after all. So it's going to be in your hands. It's going to be constantly handled by maybe one or more people. So you want to make sure that your nice craggy rock doesn't turn back into pink styrofoam all of a sudden. Like, where's that pink styrofoam? That panther pink. That's what I'm gonna call it. You know,
like the Pink Panther.
Like the Pink Panther. Pink Panther. Interesting fact about the color Panther pink. It's actually a color it's a Mopar color. Used for the muscle cars in 1969, 1970. It was an option. You really seen on the Challenger type vehicles. If you're into cars like me, I'm a car nut. So now you're going to see I'm going to go around the entire piece and I'm going to show you how I make all the Rocky Crags throughout there. So what do you think? Do you think I went a little bit too far with this, or did it need it?
No, absolutely not. I think it needed it.
That's what I felt. I felt like I looked at the terrain for my Space Wolves on there that I make for their bases, and I wanted to do some justice, or at least justify their surroundings. This is a terrain for them after all. And I remember an artist, Vince Venturella, who told me that if you're going to paint for competition, your base has to be, you have to spend just as much time on your base to make it look as realistic as the model. Because if you don't, then there's going to be an disproportionate amount of, it's going to look fake, because it's going to look like an afterthought. And if you're taking an afterthought to competition, you're not going to win. So yeah, this is just an extension of the base, really.
Now, do you think that sometimes as a painter / gamer, it can be tempting to just focus on the minis and kind of leave the terrains as an afterthought?
Certainly. In fact, most people do not put this much effort into their terrain. Most gamers have gamed with Pringles, potato chips tubes, and cans, and even beer cans or soda cans. Yeah, they just put down anything really, and it's just all about the game. And sometimes they have gray armies, which gives me like a twitch. It's like trigger. Yeah, I mean, so much detail. Anyway, and you could always improve on every single one of your miniatures by trying to intentionally improve one skill every time you paint the miniature.
Now, would you say that spending a significant amount of time on terrain is a hill that you are willing to die on?
Oh my God. Definitely. Absolutely. That is a hill I'm willing to die on. It has to be painted. None of that non-painted stuff for this household. No way. We're a completely painted family. You may have noticed in the background that all my paints are gone, and my miniatures and everything else. Yeah, I guess I had to sell it all up to I'm kidding. I didn't know. I'm moving. TMP Studios is moving once more. That'd be the third move and final move, maybe, unless we move upstairs from the place. Yeah, could happen. So there's going to be the third studio for the TMP. All right. Now time to use cheaper paint. Now, some people think Stynylrez is not cheap, which for most part, it's not cheap, but it is cheaper than your miniature paint. So I kind of use that there. You can get cheaper paint. This is self-leveling, so I really, well, I had to, that was going to come off, so I had to crimp it. Okay. So I really had to not have to worry about, it pooling or something like that, because it won't like do the drippy drips. They're self-leveling. So it looks fantastic after putting it down. So I thought it would be worth it and less hassle if I did it this way. Definitely not most economical. However, definitely the easiest way I can do this. So sometimes you have to stabby stab paint. Sometimes you have to strokey stroke paint. All kinds of techniques here. You just have to see the application that suits your needs. You want to get into all the rocks and all the cracks and crevices. You do want to like turn it upside down and try to get those angles too. You definitely want to make sure that when you look down upon it, you don't see any pink whatsoever, because that would destroy the realism of it completely. Like that color pink is not a natural phenomenon in nature. It is unnatural. It's an unnatural color. Ooh, I think. It would work. I think it would work well if it was in a chaos realm or something like that, where anything kind of goes. Maybe in Zinch, you do hills that are pink.
Or maybe in an underwater scene. It could be like coral, part of a coral reef.
Coral. Had an appetite only hands could satisfy. All right. If you know, you know. So yeah, I like to use the big brushes here. Oh yeah, whipping out the big brushes. You know what I got? I got that from I think it wasn't Hobby Lobby. It was Michael's or something like that, where they just had general brushes, all different types, just randomly put together. And I'm like, yeah, I could use that. In fact, I have so many old brushes that are absolutely ruined, and I keep them around. You know why?
For jobs like this?
Yeah, that glue application, mixing up paint inside my airbrush or something like that, where the bristles will get absolutely ruined. Like, yeah, those are the things that I save the old brush for. Actually, if you take all the bristles out and just use the metal piece, you can actually create indent bricks and kind of different shapes to make like a cobblestone street.
Oh.
Yeah, you can do that too. If you want to put in one brick at a time, then yes, you can do that if you wanted to. Kind of cool if you had like a broken wall and you just wanted a couple of bricks. Another technique that you can use when creating bricks actually is use that Proxon cutter and just slice, rip them like if you were ripping a 2x4 or something like that. Time for Loctite gel glue, my favorite glue. And I have these Irwin, but you can use different brands. These little clamps that are going to clamp down the piece to the glue. You got to see that it is a little uneven, irregular, simply because the snow underneath is uneven and irregular. So I want to make sure it's stuck down. So I put 2 on there and allow that to dry for, I would say, about 3 to 4 hours before I touched it again. I allowed it to dry for a very long time. So once it was dry, time to add the terrain's snow, which is fun to do. You have to think to yourself while you're putting these on, where would snow fall? Another thing is some of these, the AK interactive stuff, they dry out after time. So what I do is I wet it. I have a little recycled cap. I take caps from water bottles. And like I'll go to a sporting event for a high school or something like that that I attend, my high school it would be. And I would say to the athletic director, hey, if you have any caps, tell them that I need to recycle them. And they would give me a ton of caps and like not a problem whatsoever. So, they're definitely reusable. Caps are definitely reusable. Do not throw them away. Have another purpose for them because they're going to be in a landfill for I don't know how many years. because plastic does not really erode so much. So at the very least, reuse the stuff that you got. I mean, all right. So this is like a paste-like substance, and it really is closer to true white than mostly anything that I have. Like you see the other snow, and that's not even true white, even though it looks very, very white. The thing about it is undercoating, undershading. When you undershade something, that's why I pre-undershade all my minis before I start painting them with their base coats. Is because when you apply paint on top of it, the paint underneath does affect the color that's on top of it. So I build in all my shadows before I paint the miniature, and then I actually paint the miniature, and I'll have that. Over here is a gray little bit, and I tried all my texture paints because I was so sick of having Citadel or GW's texture paints in my paint rack doing absolutely nothing, because I knew, yeah, they may be great. Liquitex is a little better when it comes to crackle paint and all that other stuff, because quite honestly, it's a lot cheaper per volume. And I wanted to use these because I knew they only give me one little pot, and that's not enough to cover an entire army. So I can't really do a scenario like that. So I used them up on this project right here. I kind of just like threw the red earth in there and dry earth and crackle earth. And I was just playing around with a lot of different colors because gray is really hard to make interesting. Like it's really difficult to make interesting. So I try to add a lot of different variants to it and a lot of different layers to it. It is, it's contrasting, but not just with color, but with textures as well. That's just as important. So having those colors, having those pops here and there, saying that it is a death world according to the lore, but there's, like 1 week of the year that it's like spring. And then it goes back to winter. It's not, they call it a death planet because it's not really livable. So the people that come and live there, they're from stern stuff. They're from really tough stock, as you will. They're tough. In fact, the initiation for the Space Wolves is that you go out there pretty much with a towel on your loins, and they just dump you in the snow, and you have to make your way back. No weapons, nothing.
So do people just make the journey in the cold, or is the idea that you're far enough away that you have to find and improvise tools and make your own
however it is
clothing?
You survive.
Okay.
Yeah, you're pretty much a lone wolf. And not only that, there are vicious animals out there that will attack you because they're trying to survive just like you.
So what you're saying
is polar bears.
There's fur coats.
Yes.
They're just angry fur coats.
Yes. Very angry fur coats. And that's why you see some of the Space Wolves actually wear the fur coats. These are the fur coats that they kill themselves with their bare hands, and that's a trophy. They're always going to wear that on their armor, That's what it is. Not only that, they inject you with the Canis Helix, which is a DNA altering substance based on the DNA of, Lehman Russ, which is the father of all Space Wolves, which he has not come back yet. Oh, to have that model would be glorious. All right. I did paint a Lehman Russ, but it was for 30K, not 40K. So yeah, you have some of his DNA that they inject in you. The thing about this is that it's going to really alter who you are, and you're thrown out in the snow going through all that. And there's a very likely chance that you will allow the anger and rage from the Canis Helix to take over. And what you turn into is a wolfen, which is part wolf, part man. You're no longer in charge of your senses. You become more animal than human. But if you do survive, you become a space wolf, which you have the keen senses of the wolven, but the wherewithal to keep your identity and keep who you are as a person. So imagine being out there completely, you have a loincloth and you're going through a gravitative force that you have to battle and keep under control while surviving and having angry fur coats coming after you at every step of the way and making your way back. And we're talking about, yeah, it's like 28 minutes, it's a marathon out, it's
Wow.
it's out there. It's out there. And you have to be careful because the ground wants to swallow you up. And what I mean by that is that it's mostly water. There's hardly any land on Fenris. And when it gets warmer, it cracks and it separates. So if you have a little village, town, or something like that, and you try to establish it, just like that, you lose people. Anyway, people from the Space Wolves come down from their one rock, which is the solid ground that they're on, and they come and check to see if there's any warriors that are tough enough to join their clan, to join the Space Wolves, and then they inject them. Most people die or turn into wolven, and the few people that survive, they become super soldiers. They alter their entire body, give themselves, I think it's 2 stomachs, 2 hearts, definitely 2 hearts. And they're like, they can spit venom.
Wow.
Or is that acid? They can spit acid. Like they alter all their glands and stuff like that. They completely rip open the body and put in new things. And you might not survive that. But if you do survive all that, then you become a rookie. Initiate, a blood claw, which is new, and you're still trying to combat your animalistic urges. And you're still fighting that. Yeah, interesting role. When you play Space Wolves, they have to attack. The blood claws have to attack the closest enemy. They're so enraged. It's the closest thing they can do, and they're trying to prove themselves. And it takes quite a while for you to go up in the ranks. Become more. There's this entire unit of Thunderwolf cavalry that they ride wolves. Big, huge, like warlike wolves. And you have that, and that's the Grey Wolves, or Grey Hunters. That's it, Grey Hunters. Usually do that. And that's the next level of echelons for the Space Wolves as well. So yeah, I am a total Space Wolf geek, fan, absolutely. And I am going to paint more Space Wolf content for the channel. So take a look at what I'm doing over here. I diluted this stuff and I'm putting it down. It gives it a different texture when I do that. I digress. I'm sorry. I went on a little tangent there, as I normally do. If you love the Space Wolves like I love the Space Wolves, put a number 1 in the chat and let me hear it. Let me hear you. Or put a howl, number 1, or howl up in that chat. You're like, yeah, Space Wolves for life, baby. I think it's so much fun. I think that army is so much fun. And that is going to be my baby, my army. Because that's how I learned how to paint on that army. And I keep on improving as a painter. So I think it looks totally rad, dude. Do that.
Yeah, well, when you have the undershading, it makes it look like there's either maybe dirt or some kind of plants trying to poke through the snow, and then you have the drifts of snow. So you can see that there's been wind or maybe animals or soldiers walking across it.
Yup, exactly. It was exactly the intent there. It was an accidental intent at first, but I mean, it worked. Like there's little red areas. I always thought that was like blood encased in the ice. It got snowed over or something like that.
I was thinking that it was like maybe a red clayish soil.
Oh, that's true.
But yours is cooler.
No, it could be that. But keep in mind that blood after it dries kind of turns brown. Yeah. People don't really realize that. All right, messing around with this diorite is really like icing a cake. Really is. If the icing was very, very clumpy. Oh, goodness. So excited to be back into hobbying. I do apologize for not putting out any content for a while now. definitely something that I really should have been doing. But the move, I've been moving, I've been concentrating that. And I had a motorcycle accident recently and I kind of hurt myself pretty bad. So I just like taking it easy. And sitting in the hobby desk actually gives me a lot of pain sometimes. But I sat in the desk for this because, I can't go too long without painting. It just makes me sad. Yeah. So I love creating. And you're an artist too.
Yeah, just different ways, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, our roads can converge.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely techniques that you use, like your blending skills. I want to hone in my blending skills even more so with a brush. Now I use acrylic, you use oil. Now, the thing about acrylics and oil differences is that oil dries a lot slower than acrylic. So your blending time is like forever.
Yeah, that was when I would be doing my oil paintings.
Yeah.
I could blend something that I had done the day before.
Yeah,
and I could still kind of make, changes or corrections without totally painting it over it. But then the downside to that is you can't easily, like if you make a mistake, something really bad, you have to wait a long time before you can cover it up, or you have to try to kind of get the paint off. So there's good and bad.
And the beauty about acrylic paints is that they dry fast.
And you can immediately paint over them.
You can immediately paint, almost immediately paint over them. Like within 3 minutes, it's done. But here's the thing, blending with them, you got to know what you're doing before you even put the paint on the canvas and or, your mini or anything like that. You got to know what you're doing. There's this thing called loaded brush. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
Okay, so loaded brush is when you take the finishing color and dip your paintbrush into that color, and then you take the starting color and dip your halfway to the other one. So as you're mixing the paint going down in a straight line, it actually creates a gradient into the other color.
Nice.
Pretty cool, huh?
That is cool.
Yeah, definitely. I love little techniques. Yeah, we can learn from each other and grow. All right. So moving back. All right. So moving back. I think it was a fantastic thing that I got inspired, that I got so annoyed with the sides of this that I just had to do something with them. Now I do have terrain that's grassy that I actually inherited from someone else. And I am going to use these woodland scenic trees.
Ooh.
To use the trees.
Exciting.
I'm going to use some of that. And that's going to be another project that we're going to attempt here. Maybe you can help me decorate the trees. Create the trees. We can do that together. All right. Well, did you like the video?
I did.
You like liked everything? You think Space Wolves are your jam, or you want to? No, not
I'll
really.
Stick with the Flesh Eater Chords.
Oh yeah, well that's AOS. That's AOS. Yeah. I haven't. I think Nurgle is gonna be mine, or the Maw Tribes, Giants. I don't have a lot of different words.
But what I really like is how you just kind of created something out of nothing. You made up your own terrain. You just completely made that with things that you found at the hardware store. You didn't have to buy them in a kit. That was all you.
Yeah, it was fun. I love that. I love making terrain, and I love making bases. And a lot of people have given me a lot of compliments on my bases. So why not extend that to terrain, right? So that's what I'm thinking there. So yeah, nothing in the back. It's a completely cleaned out room. And I mean, not this side isn't, like, you don't say it. The computer and the hobby desk is still there. But I need to clear it out soon-ish. So, and we're going to meet you in a different studio soon-ish. Any case.
A few more videos in here.
A few more. Yeah, it's a few more. All right. Well, hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did like that video, think about liking and sharing with others. Sharing is the kindest thing you can do for the channel. Helps it grow. So if you know somebody who might be interested, click that, copy the link, share it with other people. Even if you don't share it, if you copy the link, for some reason, YouTube's algorithms thing, I don't know. It does a thing. Go figure. Costs nothing. All right. Well, if you like this video, and better yet, I have some advice for you. I think we do. Yeah. Don't forget to paint every miniature or terrain to increase at least one skill.
And may your backlog get ever smaller.
Like mine. Not really.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake